Brevard High School District 228 to order. Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Canning?
Here.
Mrs. Gleason? Here. Mrs. Johnson? Mr. Johnson? Mrs. Jones? Mrs. Campworth here. Mrs. Ressler? Here. Ms. Stearns?
Here. Please rise for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our first item is a motion to approve the July 19, 2016 open and closed session minutes.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Ressler, second by Ms. Gleason. Any discussion? No discussion.
Mrs. Ressler? Aye. Mrs. Gleason? Aye. Mr. Canning?
I'm going to abstain. I was absent for that meeting.
Mrs. Campworth? Aye. Ms. Stearns?
Aye. Our next item is the August 8th, 2016 Committee of the Whole minutes.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Ms. Gleason, second by Ms. Ressler. Any discussion? No discussion.
Mrs. Gleason? Aye. Mrs. Ressler? Aye. Mr. Canning?
Aye.
Mrs. Campworth? Aye. Ms. Stearns?
Aye. Do we have any communications from the public?
Do not.
We do not. So we'll move on to reports, starting with the superintendent.
Freedom of Information Act requests. We've had 3 since our last board meeting. Ms. Catherine Smizer of NBC Channel 5 requested any leases or agreements with telecommunications providers, cell phone antennas and/or towers installed by the provider on school property. Also, the location of the cellular antenna and the amount paid to the school district each year. This request has been completed. Ms. Diane Rado, education reporter for the Chicago Tribune, requested placement information about each high school in our district, including the names of courses for which a placement process is used to enroll freshmen, the names of any tests used in the placement process, the precise cutoff scores on each test that determine placement, a description of any factors that go into placement process, information given to parents that explains the level or rigor of courses, the names of the labels at the local level and whether parents are provided the labels, whether remedial courses are still offered, appeal forms and limits of appeals if allowed. Also include the number of appeals for all grade levels, subjects during the 2014-15, 2015-16 school year. This request has been completed. Ms. Kenzie Verheyen, Communication Associate for One Chance Illinois, asked if we have an acceleration policy, and if so, does it allow students to take classes at a higher level than their current grade, to skip grades and/or graduate early. And this request has been completed. For the superintendent's report, district administrators attended the annual administrative workshop on Monday, August 15th. Approximately 50 staff members spent the day discussing how we can help students and staff succeed in having a great school year. We also discussed the district goals for 2016-17 and the quality school construction bond that will provide many exciting opportunities for our school community. Our teachers will return to work for the 2016-17 school year on Thursday when we host our Opening Day Institute at Hillcrest High School. On Monday, August 22nd, our class of 2020 will start the school year. And on Tuesday, all classes will be in session. Thank you.
Thank you. Do any board members have anything?
We got a couple things.
Okay.
Yeah, I visited, I had an opportunity to visit the Bridge Teen Center. Our own Amber Hollop gave me the tour, and I just wanted to bring that up. And you know, it'd be great, I feel, if the district could play some kind of role or some capacity with the Teen Center. The center is a very positive program for students, and I do understand, Dr. Kendall, that they have reached out to you. So Amber said, so it'd be great to be hooked up in some capacity with that.
I know Tinley has worked on some things. They've done a staff meeting there, and absolutely we can look forward. Instead
of just Tinley High School, maybe we could get it opened up,
sure,
you know, from all the schools. It's just a real positive environment for kids to be involved in. So that was a real positive. And then last, item 7.5 on last month's agenda, the July meeting, July 19th, the hiring of a public relations firm. I just want to go on record stating that, first of all, I wasn't at that meeting. I was sick. I apologize. I believe it's a waste of taxpayers' money, and I would have voted no on it. So I just wanted that part of the record. And that's it.
Anybody else? Regarding the Bridge Teen Center, I've also spoken on that several times, and we do have several of our students that volunteer there.
Yeah.
And they are working on a program to, like the modules, I forget what exactly she calls them, for behavior correction or whatever, of getting that as not a consequence, but like if somebody gets in trouble, they'll go there or participate in one of the peer-led. So they are working on setting up their program.
It's a great program. And I encourage anybody that would want to go and visit it and walk the facility because it's just outstanding.
The county clerk's office is also looking for teens to act as election judges. I know Hillcrest always is very well represented. I don't ever see many of the other schools, so I'm not going to every polling place though either. That's all I have. So we'll move on to committee reports. Ms. Ressler.
Okay, the Finance Committee met on Monday, August 8th at 8:36 p.m. Present were myself, Mr. Canning, Mrs. Campworth, and Mr. O'Malley. Our guests included Mrs. Gleason, Mrs. Jones, and Dr. Kendall. August bills, impress funds, and deposits. The Finance Committee reviewed and discussed the August bills, impress expenditures, and deposits. The Finance Committee, along with the Superintendent, is recommending full board approval of the August bills, addendum to bills, impress expenditures, and deposits. There were no over $5,000 purchase orders. For the Career Development System bills, the Finance Committee reviewed the CDS bills totaling $11,032.41. The Finance Committee, along with the Superintendent, is recommending full board approval of the CDS August bills as presented. There were no additional discussions. Announcements. Our next meeting is scheduled for September 12th, 2016 at 7 p.m. at the Administration Center, and our meeting was adjourned at 8:50 p.m. Thank you.
Teaching and learning, Ms. Campbell?
Teaching and learning met on Tuesday, August 9. Did we come over to sign the phone? 6:30, right? Okay. I was like, wait a minute. Okay. The meeting was called to order at 6:30. Present were Mrs. Campworth, Mrs. Gleason, and Dr. Williams. Absent were Ms. Stearns. No comments from the public. Dr. Williams informed the committee that one of the 5 sections granted by the board at the June meeting will be used at Hillcrest in PE for the students in the new Bridges program. No other sections have been added at this time. The committee looked at class sizes for each building based on enrollments as of July 12th. While there are a few sections at each school well above the top of the windows, balancing is still occurring, and it is expected that most of these issues will be corrected. Dr. Williams will look at class sizes again just before the start of school and after the 10-day drop. At this time, no additional sections are needed. A summary of the district and building 2016 AP achievement was shared with the committee. While we have maintained the same number of testing students, they took about 60 less exams compared to the previous year. Students testing in AP Physics 2 or Physics C achieved above state and national averages. In addition, students testing in AP Chemistry or Calculus AB scored above the national average. Lastly, 152 students, or 15% of testers, earned AP honors based upon the number of tests they've taken and scores earned. The next meeting will be held on Tuesday, September 13th at 6:30 in the Administrative Center. The meeting adjourned at 6:50 p.m.
Thank you. Policy, Mrs. Gleason?
Thank you. Policy Committee met on August 9th at 4 p.m. at the Ed Center. Present were myself, Mr. Johnson, and Mrs. Jones, as well as Dr. Kendall and Ms. DeVos. We reviewed the following press recommendations for policy change: vacancy on the school board, filling vacancies, using animals in the educational program for the gifted, access to electronic networks, graduation requirements, agency and police interviews, student behavior, formerly known as student discipline, suspension procedures, expulsion procedures, bus conduct, conduct code for participants in extracurricular activities, administering medicines to students, public suggestions and concerns. Following review of each section, the consensus of the committee was to ask the superintendent to bring recommendation to the full board for first and final reading at the August 16th board meeting. This meeting adjourned at 4:37 p.m.
Thank you. Personnel meeting was held on Monday, August 8th. President or Mr. Canning, Ms. Russell, and Dr. Goggins. I was unable to attend. Dr. Goggins presented the following certificated staff recommendations for Bremen: the acceptance of the resignation of a psychologist and the approval of the employment of a physical education and special education teacher. For Tinley Park, the approval of the employment of a full-time substitute, a student assistant, and a special education service facilitator. Hillcrest, the approval of the retirement request of a science teacher and the approval of the employment of 2 special education teachers, 2 physical education teachers, 2 full-time substitutes, 2 math tutors, an English doctor, and a student assistant. Oak Forest, the acceptance of the resignation of a school nurse and a math teacher, the approval of the employment of a social science teacher, an English teacher, 2 full-time substitutes, a project manager, and an English doctor. After reviewing all the certificated staff items, the committee agreed to make a recommendation to the full board for approval. Dr. Goggins then presented the following educational support personnel recommendations: the approval of the employment of a special education aide for Hillcrest and the acceptance of the resignation of a receptionist and a special ed aide at Oak Forest. The next meeting will be September 12th, 6:30 at the Ad Center, and the meeting adjourned at 7. New business, Mr. O'Malley.
Thank you, Ms. Stearns. Board members, item 8.1 pertains to our monthly bills, the addendum to bills, payroll, and CDF bills. The Finance Committee, along with the superintendent, are recommending this item to the board this evening.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Ressler, second by Mr. Canning. Is there any discussion? No discussion.
Mrs. Ressler?
Aye.
Mr. Canning?
Aye.
Mrs. Gleason?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mrs. Campworth? Aye. Ms. Stearns?
Aye. Dr. Williams?
Board members, item 8.2 is an overnight field trip request. Apologize for the lateness of this. We did not have a chance to go through it through teaching and learning. It just came to our attention yesterday. The Bremen varsity soccer team would like to attend the Urbana High School soccer tournament. In the past, they usually attend one in Rockford, but it was canceled this summer. And so they have an opportunity to go to the Urbana High School competition. This would be Friday, September 2nd, so they would have a half day of school and then leave to go down to Urbana, play Saturday night, or Friday night and Saturday. It'd be $50 for the student, paid through fundraisers, no cost to district. They would take the school buses. So the superintendent recommends the approval of this overnight field trip request.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Ms. Gleason, second by Ms. Ressler. Any discussion?
Is this item 8.2? Because on my agenda, it says 7-year capital improvement plan. Oh, rules are revised? Yeah, I copied this off the computers. Okay, I didn't get the revised one.
On the computer.
Pardon me?
On the computer.
Yeah, I go hard copy.
Sorry.
I'm old school.
Okay. Mrs. Gleason?
Aye.
Mrs. Ressler?
Aye.
Mr. Canning?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mrs. Campworth? Aye. Ms. Stearns?
Aye. Dr. Kendall?
Item 8.3 is the tentative 7-year capital improvement plan. At the August Committee of the Whole meeting, the board reviewed a tentative 7-year plan. Year 1 of this plan includes the required drainage and detention on all 4 campuses and the installation of turf fields. Please note that years 2 through 7 of the plan are tentative and will be reviewed and updated annually. I'm recommending the approval of the tentative 7-year capital improvement plan.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Gleason, second by Ms. Ressler. Any discussion?
I just have one question, sorry. Mr. O'Malley, did you have that meeting on the TIF for Panduit and Tinley?
We're meeting next week. I had connected with the village clerk and the village manager, and we have a meeting scheduled next week between the village engineers of Tinley Park, our architects, and our engineers to discuss how we can work some things out.
And do you have any information on what that TIF is about and how they're incorporating Tinley Park High School?
No, we're going to discuss that next
So
week.
that's what next week is, okay.
Is that connected to this plan?
Well, that was my question, because there's a TIF through the Village of Tinley Park with Panduit that was incorporating Tinley Park High School. So if it affects, you know, our drainage issues with Tinley Park High School, we could save some money with that. I'm curious. Okay. Ready for that? Mrs. Gleason? Aye. Mrs. Ressler?
Aye.
Mr. Canning?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mrs. Campworth? Aye. Ms. Stearns?
Aye. Dr. Kendall?
Item 8.4 is the biannual closed session minute and audio recording review. It is my recommendation that all closed session minutes remain closed to the public, excuse me, including the most recent minutes of February 4th, February 16th, March 15th, April 19th, May 10th, and June 21st of 2016. It is also my recommendation that the audio recordings 18 months or older be disposed of, with the exception of any dates that may be held due to pending litigation.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Gleason, seconded by Mr. Canning. Any discussion? No discussion.
Mrs. Gleason? Aye. Mr. Canning?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
No.
Mrs. Campworth? Aye. Mrs. Ressler?
Aye.
Ms. Stearns?
Aye.
Item 8.5 is policies up for first and final reading. I'm recommending the policy changes as recommended in vacancies on the school board, using animals in educational program for the gifted, access to electronic networks, graduation requirements, agency and police interviews, student behavior, suspension procedures, expulsion procedures, bus conduct, code of conduct for participants in extracurricular activities, administering medicines to students, and public suggestions for concerns.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Gleason, seconded by Ms. Ressler. Any discussion? It doesn't actually pertain to this, but since you put in our packet information about pre-conference classes that the board could take, I'm still waiting for some kind of, are we going to do it through policy or what, on what, if the board is going to raise their budget, if we're going to allocate, you know, so many per board member, or I know some of us, especially from the previous board, were watching our pennies and not taking a bunch of classes. Either we're all taking the same amount or, you know, we have to have an understanding, I think.
So are you advocating for a budget for that, or?
We do have a budget for education. I just wanted clarification if we're going to say like all of us are allocated $5,000 or whatever the amount is, or I don't care, I give you mine, you can take whatever you want.
There's so
or,
much free on the internet. I mean,
I just think we
that would
need
be
to
a total.
all be on
We
the
all
same
should
page.
be taking the same class.
I just think we need to have that discussion
Okay.
somewhere,
When would you like to have that discussion?
on an agenda somewhere.
I would be in favor of having it on the agenda.
All right.
Which committee?
Well, do we do it through a committee as a whole?
Or policy, I don't know. I thought,
I think
policy?
Do you want to make a policy on it? I don't know.
well, here's what I can do. I can send you current practice in an email. You guys can email me your recommendations back individually. I can gather those and then see where it takes us, whether.
Why don't we take a look at what our budget is for the classes, how much we've spent so far, and
Yeah,
maybe
I'll
last 3 years, how many classes
Yeah, I'll
have
give
been
you all
attended.
But I don't know if that's really good because some of us haven't been taking classes specifically because we're in the Reddington Detroit to spend money on classes when we're asking everybody else to.
Right, but let's just take a look at where it's all at, what the classes were, and what did they bring to the table for the board? Was it board spending the money or not?
I don't think it's itemized by class, so I don't know what classes other people have taken.
It's itemized by person though, yeah.
Just by person.
But you don't know what classes have been taken?
I don't know that it's itemized that level.
But by class, okay.
I'd be interested to see what classes there are that you can't get in November conferences. I mean, that book is this thick.
People have gone to pre-conferences in November too, and that's extra. It must be one way.
Right.
So do you want me to give you information or give you information in I don't think the recommendation should come from the superintendent. It's more in your wheelhouse.
I agree. It should
how
come
you-
from us.
How you want to do
Well,
that.
let's
So
start with information.
I'll give you information of what's been spent, what our current policy is, what our current budget is, as best as I can, and you guys can go from there.
Sounds good.
Gleason and Russell.
Mrs. Gleason?
Aye.
Mrs. Ressler?
Aye.
Mr. Canning?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mrs. Camworth, aye. Ms. Stearns?
Aye. Dr. Goggins?
Section 8.6 pertains to personnel. Under resignations, Consuela Davis, Laura Chapman, Nancy Kopecki, Araceli Martinez, Abigail Nelson, and Kelly Baumgartner. Under retirement, Anthony Rappold. Under employment, Beth Yakos, Sarah Fahey, Michael DeLuca, Gregory Batica, Kelsey Nalen, Teresa Kelsey, Jerry Ward, Michael Prepura, Cynthia Goodwin, Robert Travis, Ryan Wellborn, Gerardo Sanchez, Megan Cochero, Delmar Smith, Chastity Neal, Jordan Walter, Shane Pennington, Luther Boyd, Anthony Coleman, Kevin Daniels, Daryl Dyson, Heather Kajewski, Angela Lee, Alicia Sink, Paul Augustine, Ricky Worthy, Lynn Fitzgerald, Jason Pearson, Cheryl Lannon, and Patricia Schumann. Under changes in position, Courtney Stransberry and Adam Villafranca. Board Personnel Committee met on August 8th. They reviewed these certificated and support staff items, and they are now being presented to the full board for approval.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Stearns, second by Ms. Ressler. Any discussions? Sorry. No discussion.
Ms. Stearns?
Aye.
Mrs. Ressler?
Aye.
Mr. Canning?
Aye.
Mrs. Gleason?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson? Mrs. Camworth, aye.
I'm looking for a motion to close session to consider information regarding appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Canning, second by Ms. Canning.
Mr. Canning?
Aye.
Mrs. Camworth, aye. Mrs. Gleason? Aye. Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mrs. Ressler?
Aye.
Ms. Stearns?
Aye. Return to open session. Gleason Johnson.
All right, Mrs. Gleason? Aye. Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Canning?
Aye.
Mrs. Camworth, aye. Mrs. Ressler? Aye. Ms. Stearns?
Aye. Our announcements are as follows. Personnel will meet Monday, September 12th, 6:30 p.m. at the Ad Center. Finance Week, Monday, September 12th, 7 p.m. at the Ad Center. Teaching and Learning will meet Tuesday, September 13th, 6:30 at the Ad Center. The next board meeting will be September 20th, 7 p.m. at Berman High School. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Gleason, second by Mr. Canning. All in favor, aye.
Aye.